Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 10 of The Letter. Let's just jump right back into it. Even if she didn't ask, I would have probably given her a few prints just for the hell of it. Miss Wright ain't such a bad subject matter to begin with, and maybe this is just me, but for someone who has everything at the palm of her hands, all the money in the world, a loving husband, and plenty big mansion to call home, she's lonely. She doesn't just appear like it. It shows in the tone of her voice, how she moves, and most certainly in her smiles. Always hidden beneath the glamour for the world to never see. Sometimes for people like her, small things like these helps. A little reminder that the world can be kind too. Water drips from the paper as I blindly picking it up and gently lay it on another tray, holding a decent amount of photo flow. A few seconds under the solution is all it needs before it's ready for drying. No good rushing this last one, even if my body is already screaming for some decent snooze. My hand fumbles for the light switch, moving towards it with familiarity, while I fish for a squeegee among the mess of tools on a drawer with the other. The bulb flickers twice before it glows, settles, and it casts a soft light in a tiny space. When I glance back down, squeegee in hand, ready to finish the process. Yeah, it's the photo with... Oh my god, her head is gone. Blurred and distorted beyond recognition, rather. The area completely smudged over, leaving no trace of the same sweet smile the good woman carried in all the previous prints.
Damn, that was too careless.
A common mistake to make, of course, if one is negligent enough to pick a newly processed photo in the dark, like I apparently did. It has happened before, loads of times actually, but I still can't help but feel a small pang of frustration over what mistake a newbie would likely make. With a sigh, I reach up for the switch again, intending to develop a new one from scratch.
It could pass off for one of those supernatural pictures they show on TV, though.
A memory clicks, one cursory thought in the sea of many, and a short yet distinct second from the day before. A glimpse is all I got, but it's enough to burn the image in my mind. There was a shadow. No. A woman. In her 20s or early 30s maybe. Snapping her neck. But with how far her flesh has gone alone has become, it's not possible to tell at first glance. The skin itself had already taken a sickly pale color, rotten in most parts, blood dripping from every open gash and lesion on her body. Bony hands grip Mrs. Wright's neck like a noose, straining the skin underneath with a vibrant. Nothing but malice fills the gleam in her eyes.
Zachary?
Not for me, but for Miss Wright.
Zach, is something the matter?
Oh no, there's nothing wrong. I just remembered something, that's all. Let's get back to the pictures. Can you move a bit more to the left, yeah?
The memory alone is enough to make me retch. I brushed it off then. A trick of the eye, I told myself, or a product of the heat. The weather has been unexpectedly warm recently, so it shouldn't be too surprising for such things to happen. And, while blaming this on the usual fatigue, an overworked brain, the weather, or an amateur error on my part, it makes a whole lot of sense that what the small voice inside my head whispers. The same tiny voice that only makes itself known when something's afoul, the same one that lent a curious ear to Isabella's worries. And with each second I spend staring at this photograph, the murmurs in my head only grow louder against my ears. Someone has to know. Dude, don't show Ash. Ash doesn't believe in this bullshit. I don't have an explanation for what I saw yesterday. Yet. But when you've been there, seen something enough to raise the hairs at the back of your neck or leave you wanting to flee or hide, finding a more solid proof than a person's smudged off face on a photo is the least of my concerns. Ashton will undoubtedly give me flack for saying that, even if considering Isabella's words and those silly tales about the place. The guy is a skeptic through and through. It'll take more than my account for him to even give this a single thought. However, more of his opinion, it's Mrs. Wright's I'm concerned about. Surely she must have felt something if those shows on TV are to be believed. A touch of coldness in her neck, or maybe the feeling of being watched. That's what often happens, ain't it? Outside, the sun has yet to rise. I've still got a few hours before dawn. Good enough time to mull over how I'll go about warning her. Plenty of space to check if I'll get the same result if I redo the process. The film processor hums back to life at my touch. The light switch gives out a soft click. Darkness embraces a small closet again.
So now those urban legends don't sound so silly now.
No, not in the dark. In hindsight, this is a dumb idea. This is to say, rushing a client I barely knows home first thing in the morning with a new ghost lady. Oh, and there's a bunch of bizarre-looking pictures of Miss Hannah I brought as proof, too. So yeah, dumbest idea in the history of my dumb ideas, all things considered. Traveling to the outskirts of Anslem Village at the crack of dawn with only my bike as company, equally so. Personally, I don't think any of them would take whatever I'm going to say well, no matter how nice or accommodating they are. Ashton himself would tell me the same thing. Odds are he'll laugh at it in my face for good measure if he doesn't freak out at me first for not listening to his warnings. Still, that's a whole separate can of worms, all open at the different time, seeing as I'm already standing at the Wright's front porch waiting for someone to answer the door. More than anything, Mr. Wright needs to know there's possibly nothing safe in this place. Warnings from friends be damned.
If someone would answer the door sooner. Come on.
Try to ignore the looming presence their large, ornate doors give off as I press the doorbell for the 4th time. Yeah, unless she's already possessed at this point. Its shrill ringing merely echoes, carried off by another warm, passing breeze. The first time I came to this place, I found myself basking in the silence of others. It offers. Now the atmosphere is just heavy, packed with trepidation. Isabella's right, it does radiate the creepy kind of vibe. And with the image from the day before constantly flashing in my mind, the unease becomes harder to ignore as each second drifts by. Not wanting to spend more time here than necessary, I ring the doorbell again. Another long second ticks by without anyone answering the door. If this fails, I can always go to Ash. Not really the most sensible course of action either, but waiting here ain't doing me any good. For all I know, the Wrights could be out of town. As luck would have it, just as I'm about to turn on my heel, a loud thump rises from the other side. It's followed by heavy footfalls and a string of very colorful expletives about one's parentage.
Didn't we have that bloody annoying doorbell replaced yesterday? That Irish guy just cost me a fortune.
Oh, it's, what's his face?
And where the hell is... Your hands, if another po-faced prat is pressing that blighted bell, I swear I'll cut there.
The door swings open and a very irate Mr. Wright greets me, his partly rumpled appearance a clear testament to how early the hour is.
Who might you be? I don't recall asking the movers to show up this early.
I was prepared to face Mrs. Wright, their butler, more so. But Mr. Wright, I don't quite know what to make of him yet. I only caught sight of him yesterday as he's directing the movers. Although from how exasperated he sounded then, it seemed like more yelling was done than actual giving of directions. Needless to say, I'd like to believe those instances aren't all there is to the guy. Mr. Wright, at the end of the day, did marry him. Standing before him like now, though, is a different story altogether. Despite the difference in our respective heights, he manages to make it appear like he is the one looking down at me, not the other way around. An apology instinctively forms in my mouth before anything else when he arches an eyebrow at my lack of response.
Well, that's not exactly why I'm here. Mr. Wright, yeah?
Right, of course, the one and only. And what can I do for you this fine morning? Have I seen you somewhere before? Bloody you peasants all look the same to me.
Yeah, I'm actually...
It doesn't matter. I don't care. I've got someplace important to be at today. Just spit out what you want or be gone. I haven't got all day.
His eyes are sharp and expecting in spite of his indifferent tone. The very impression of someone whose sharp wits has served him well throughout his life, the kind you have to carefully choose your words around. Disconcerting how a simple conversation can easily seem like a ruthless form of social maneuvering. I can see why Miss Wright would want to steer clear of it, if only for a short while. And sometimes, the only way out of this game is to be honest. I mean, I'm not. Am I really friends with Hannah? I'm not. I wouldn't say like I'm friends. It's just my job. So I'm gonna go with the photographer.
I'm with Luxury Living, sir.
He eyes the business card I hand him with a completely passive expression. He turns it between his fingers without really reading the letters printed before handing it back in the same blase manner one usually reserves for people below their station or a nuisance. With him, it seems more of the latter than the former.
Mr. Steele.
Just Zach would do, sir.
I can see why. You should hear what they say about my name. Although I'm of the opinion those don't sound as unpleasant as yours to the ear. Amusing what people can come up with in their leisure time, no? Well then, to what reason do we owe this second visit, Zach?
Right, like I said earlier, I'm the photographer from Luxury Living. I'm here about the photo shoot yesterday and...
His eyes narrow at that, mouth tightening in a small frown, passive stance dissolving into a rigid one. It ain't a complete lie, what I came here for. I'm not lying, but it ain't the whole truth either.
Didn't you already wrap that one up? I believe my wife was the one with you then. You even mentioned a little tete-a-tete with the photographer. That was you, wasn't it?
Yes. Actually, sir, there was something I forgot to discuss with your...
And you had to show up at such an hour for something you forgot. Why wasn't there any notice about this little visit?
It was an error on my part, sir. I do apologize for not letting you know in advance.
Terribly unprofessional for someone going under the name of an esteemed publication like Luxury Living, if you ask me. Of course, even if there was a word of some sort, that butler does not check my emails as often as I would have liked. But straight up walking in here this early isn't the most sensible thing to do either.
The matter was a bit urgent, and my art director wanted it done as soon as possible before I hand him the finished prints.
Not my problem now, is it? A common courtesy would be to wait for replies before barging in. You do well to remember that. I once fired someone before they could even submit an application. Sent an email in the morning and suddenly sauntered in the office looking knackered mere hours after. Bloody Watkins. That aside, unfortunately, you're going to have to come back some other day. You see, darling wife left not a moment ago. I have not an inkling where she went, or when she'll be back, so you're better off.
Love, is it the movers?
He stops speaking altogether, and the complacent expression he has collapses on itself. Slowly, he turns just as his wife walks up to him with a step too lively for comfort, a smile too sweet to be honest. She's very likely heard everything her husband and I have talked about.
Going off somewhere.
I've got the few things I want them to transfer already. Marianne made this splendid arrangement for the music room and... Love, are you listening?
I thought you already left, Buttercup.
She musters a frown, a pout more like. The mischievous gleam in her eyes when she glances at me says all there is I need to know. I would have laughed at her antics if it wouldn't offend the other man. But as it is, it's better to let his wife have her fun without any reaction from me. I'm treading on dangerous grounds with him already.
I certainly have not left yet. I wouldn't be standing here if I did, would I?
Of course you wouldn't be, darling. But don't you need to be somewhere else today? Something with Marianne? Shopping, girl, things?
Oh, I'll be leaving in a few. Unless you want to join us.
Oh, no, thanks, darling. I'm afraid my liver is killing me today.
I thought as much. You needn't have to worry. I'll be gone in a few. It's just that I heard we have a visitor. What kind of person would I be if I didn't greet him before leaving?
A very gracious one, I'm sure.
Zachary, right? Zach? It's a pleasure to see you again.
Likewise, ma'am. I was actually looking for you.
Is that so? What for?
A huge display of unprofessionalism is what it's for.
Shush, darling. Let the man speak. I'm sure it isn't anything like that if he has to come all the way here, yes?
It's about yesterday. The photos you asked, I mean. The copies are ready, but...
My hand stills as I'm about to fish the prints out of my pocket. Short second passes, that which strikes me how I didn't think this through at all. How I'll go about telling her regarding the strange photos, or revealing this to her in the presence of another person. Her husband gazing over us like a hawk doesn't provide any sort of comfort either. And just like that, all the words I've been practicing to say on the way here inevitably fall stiffly off my mouth. Miss Wright must have noticed my hesitance, because shortly she gives her husband's arm a gentle squeeze, a tender smiling gracing her face. Unlike the first, this one is meant to appease.
Love, I think Hansi might need some of your input for the final guest list. Could you check on him, please?
Bollocks! Why in all Luxborn do I have to be there? Doing tedious jobs are what he's being paid for.
Because if we end up with people whose faces you do not want to show up in our housewarming party, we won't be hearing the end of it. Unless a heavy dose of liquor's involved. You know what the doctor said about that. Please do poor Hansi and your liver a favor,
He can handle that on his own, Buttercup. And my liver is doing just fine.
I'm sure it is. But I don't know, love. I think I caught a glimpse of the name Mitch Lakes, was it? I think it was Mitch Lakes on it when I checked with Hansi earlier. You should see for yourself. It was quite a list.
Who put that blighted twat in there?
And that's why I'm asking you to look over it before I do so tonight.
Very well.
But even with that promise, he doesn't appear ready to leave. Short of passing through their doors, he stops and glances back at me, all without bothering to hide the distrust in his eyes.
Dear, I'll be fine. Go back to your butler. I'm not some pregnant wife you have to worry about.
Fine, fine. I have to go to that little ankle-biter's career day later anyway. I don't see why I have to go there. Kylie's your goddaughter.
And yet, she has you around her little fingers, darling. That's basically the same thing.
If he ever has an answer to that, we don't get to hear it above the heavy thud the door makes, and Mrs. Wright's own weary exhale as she assures her husband. She's nothing but apologetic when she fixes her gaze back at me, and I can't help but return the same to her.
I am so sorry you had to deal with that. My husband can be a bit trying when he really applied himself.
It's fine, Miss Wright. No harm done. It was my fault for showing up here unannounced. And this might be strange coming from me, but he does have the right to be wary. The press can be quite vicious when it wants to be.
Caught unexpectedly, they'll pick you apart. It is not surprising why he acted the way he did around me.
Sweetie, if Luke treats every journalist who shows up here like that, I'm afraid we'll end up with a harassment lawsuit hanging over our heads sometime in the future. Vicious or not, some sort of finesse has to be exercised when dealing with them. I'm sorry, I hope that wasn't too offensive.
Not at all, Miss Wright. Besides, I don't think an interior design magazine would be interested in who harassed who this week. Unless it has something to do with fighting over tastefully arranged furniture. But even then, I don't think our readers will be too interested.
Oh, dearie. You've got a lot to learn. You really have no idea how a single tattle can ignite a spark in a crowd. Of course, at the end of the day, it's still the thought that counts. It's still a lovely anniversary gift from my husband. No matter, let's just go.
She doesn't wait for an answer and immediately wanders over a car parked some distance from us. Unsure, I find myself trailing after her. A chauffeur automatically opens the passenger side door as she nears, and she gestures for me to follow when she climbs into the back seat.
Where are we going exactly?
I need to get out of this stuffy house for a while. Moving in, planning the party. It's starting to get suffocating in there. Luke and Hansi can have their fun while I'm gone. I don't care. I'm getting out because I can. Another minute in there and I'll drown.
My bike.
There are, of course, a lot of things questionable about her invitation. Why she's asking a person she has only known for less than 2 days in the first place is one. How appropriate this is being another. But the rest of it crashes the moment she shoots me an imploring look.
Please? I can have someone send it back to your address later. And it's just a trip to the city for some furniture, nothing more, I assure you. Marianne will be with us, and maybe you can tell me why you're here on the way.
Guess it wouldn't hurt. I might have to leave early, though.
Excellent, then. Hop in. That's what they often say, yes?
Yeah, sure. Get in the car, bitch. This can't be a good idea, but I really don't have any other choice, do I? Especially with the way her eyes light up when I agree to it. In my pocket, the very picture of her remains faceless, a voiceless shadow hanging threateningly between us, unknown to her. If someone told me I'd be spending my entire morning being dragged around half of downtown Luxembourg, then perhaps even giving them a friendly... Oh my god. Not that I find anything wrong with this at all. On the contrary, this is most definitely a nice change of pace after weeks of getting bogged down with several freelance gigs and shut myself inside my apartment whenever I can. If only the weather would be a whole lot nicer, the kind with less sun and more clouds perhaps. With the mid-morning sun slowly beating down on us at high noon approaches, I can see why Mr. Wright skipped out on his trip. The bright sun the whole thing seems to have put Miss Wright in a less somber mood. After the 5th store, her pace is considerably livelier, her gestures less guarded than the one she displayed at the mansion earlier. The presence of another person might have helped as well. Although Miss McCullough seems less predisposed to small talk, preferring to keep to herself most of the time and let Miss Wright speak, she did acknowledge me with a small nod when we were introduced earlier. But that didn't make standing outside the store together any less awkward while we wait for our client to finish her inquiry inside.
So, interior design, huh?
She cast me a sidelong glance before returning to her notes again, her pen scratching faintly against the paper in quick successive strokes. Ah, there goes that. I did say I'm not too good at starting or keeping conversations going, didn't I? She doesn't look back up again, and I take that as my cue to stop any attempt at striking a dialogue with her and keep myself occupied with some other thing. Except what we have here is just Luxembourg and its busy streets, people going about their day like normal, cars moving in and out of sight, heading towards who knows where. Nothing remarkable, really. The ease with which a person can fade in the background here is reflective of the kind of city Luxembourg will always be, but the humdrum's one thing. Needless to say, it doesn't usually stay that way. There are times when it would come alive, make itself known, and reassert itself back to the world. However, these moments are far few in between. Then again, what with the graces of the news channel lately, I'm starting to think it's going to happen sooner. Can't say I'm looking forward to what it'll bring.
Luxury living, is it?
Her voice effectively cuts through my thoughts just as I count 13 passerbyers wearing a hat today. Besides me, I can hear the faint rustling of paper and the clicking of her pen as she stashes them back to her bag.
Excuse me, what?
The magazine you're working for. It's Luxury Living, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. You've been featured by them before, I take it?
A few years back, yes. For just some issues. My designs still appear from time to time, though not as frequent as before. Gotta have room for new talents, right?
It may not show in her face, but the pride is evident in her voice.
Good folks, the people running the publication. Tell me, is DK still on the editorial team?
Nah, I wouldn't know. I've only started taking jobs from them this year. Freelancer, you know.
Good man, that guy. Anyone in our field should meet him. He had a lot of things to say about art, all of them relevant. Learned a lot from him, actually, even if we both came from 2 different fields. I hope he's in a good place. I haven't talked to him in a while. Anyway, your portfolio must have been good if they gave you the job. They don't easily assign big features to freelancers like this.
I wouldn't say I am, but experienced, you know? The more you practice it, the more you learn the tricks of the trade. That kind of stuff.
I know what you mean. Still, you've got to keep up with the competition. Each year, a new talent emerges, and, well, you never know. Clients can be a bit fickle-minded with their choices. Believe me. Speaking of, do you think you'd be up for a new client after this?
I think so. Depends on how big the project is.
She reaches into her bag again, this time to pull out a business card, which she hands over to me.
When you're free, send your portfolio to Chris. He's my assistant. He's been looking for a decent photographer to help with updating the studio's portfolio. Nothing urgent, but the sooner the better.
Not sure if I'll have the time to squeeze this in. But, alright, I'll give it a go once.
Marianne, could you look this over for me?
At that very moment, Miss Ray emerges from the store. When I look back to Miss McCullough, a mask of professionalism has returned to her face. Or at least that is what it is trying to be. There's a different light in her eyes as she faces her, a flicker of familiarity and recognition. I'd say it's fondness, but that would be too presumptuous. Whatever it is doesn't last and is briskly swept under the firm tone her voice assumes.
Definitely. Is there a problem?
They said they don't have the colors you suggested. Do you think we can change it around for a bit? It might take a while if we insist what we want, and you know I'd rather not worry about this later.
I think it'd be better if I handle this one myself. Excuse me.
She walks into the shop without another word, leaving the two of us standing outside. As soon as she's out of earshot, however, Miss Wright lets out a giggle and swipes the business card cleanly off my hand. She smiles, the bemused little things spreading across her face, and waves the card in front of me. I wish she'll do that more often, the smiling thing. It suits her more than the other one she frequently shows to the media.
I look away, and the next thing I know, you're picking up women. On the streets, while the sun is high, no less. I'm not sure if I should be appalled or amazed. Whatever happened to the Zach I met a day ago? About as tall as you. Photographer. Quite the gentleman. To tell you the truth, I'm a bit disappointed he's gone.
It ain't like that, Miss Wright. And I'm sure Miss McCullough is not the kind of woman to let herself be picked up by strangers, let alone people she barely knows.
Oh, shush. Let me have my fun. And didn't I say you can call me Hannah?
She gives the card back to me, nevertheless, and with it her mood fades into a more pensive one. An odd look settles on her face, yearning, a bit wistful, and she looks back towards the shop display window. There's nothing remotely interesting in it for me when I follow her line of sight, though. A few trinkets here and there, a fur rug, a sofa, a wooden side table, and a lamp, all tastefully picked and arranged to resemble a typical antique living room. On second thought, it does look comfortable, but why they added a crib besides it baffles me. Unless, of course, the people they are hoping to market to are those who already have children or about to have one. Peculiar choice of decorations aside, it does make a nice icebreaker if it's not on the same level weird and completely out of the blue. It still leagues better than the awkward silence, which is definitely too out of character for a personality like Miss Hannah. How should I start the conversation? Do you think a crib would make a good gift? I think that one looks cute. Decisions. Do I think what looks cute? The crib?
Well, I think that one looks cute.
Anna balks, to my surprise, shuffling 2 steps away from the window and glares at it such vehemence as if it's something remotely scandalous. A funny sight when taken out of context, and I probably will be laughing really if I understand what warranted such a reaction from her.
I wasn't looking at the crib.
I wasn't really talking about the crib, Hannah.
Very good then. But it wasn't the crib, all right.
Alright, I get you. But that's not it. Honest. I was just saying the stuff that was on display there looks nice. Or at least as nice that it can be compared to the ones we visited earlier. But I'm sure your interior designer has something different in mind for your mansion, so don't mind me.
I was hoping that would be enough to cut the topic short. Instead, she sighs, leans on a wall closest to her, and runs her hand through a lock of her hair. There is a far-flung look in her eyes, even as she fixes it on the concrete curb.
You need to stop looking at people like that, sweetie.
I'm afraid I don't quite catch your drift, ma'am.
I suppose you wouldn't be aware of it. Do you know you always carry this kind of phase? Like you're always staring at the world with this honest look. Like all there is to see is all the good in it.
Frankly, I don't see anything wrong if it's like that. I mean, there always has to be something in it. You know, a sprinkle of kindness here and there. Otherwise, we'd all be miserable.
For you, maybe. Some people have to fight through it just to see that. And kindness isn't always a great thing to have around. Sometimes too much of it can hurt.
It makes you wonder where this is coming from, how bad things have really gone for her to have this view. I do understand her sentiment, really, I do. Still, when it's the last thing you can cling to when things have gone irreversibly bad, sometimes you simply don't get it.
Besides, the point is, it's impossible to lie when a person is looking at you like that. Or I could, but I'd feel like a horrible person afterwards. Did you hear that, Mr. Zach? You just made me feel like a horrible person. I sort of wish I had one like it. Just so people would stop lying to my face.
Or you can start by being honest with yourself. It shouldn't be quite hard. Friends don't lie to each other, don't they?
I guess so.
So what was the lie?
She draws in a breath, lays a soothing hand to her stomach, and...
That it was really the crib I was looking at earlier, silly! You're right, Uncle Zach, it's cute, but the pattern's not to my taste. I'm pretty sure Marianne could do something about that, though. At the moment, what I should really be worried about is if I'm ever going to be a good mother to this child. Ned, I can't even tell the father he's going to be one in a few months' time.
Uh-oh. Well, that's not good.
Probably doesn't even want anything to do with this whole pregnancy thing. What am I going to do, Zach?
He's got another girl,
Because
bang.
right now, I'm absolutely at a loss.
Oh.
A beat.
Oh!
The realization strikes me like a ton of bricks suddenly bearing down on me. More than astonishment must have shown in my face because Hannah lets out a chuckle. The slump on her shoulders disappears altogether underneath her mirth.
Don't look so surprised, dearie. Tied the knot 7 years ago, remember? Don't you think it's bound to happen?
She brandishes her hand in front of me, the unassuming silver band on her finger glinting against the late morning sunlight for a second. She eyes it lovingly, almost tenderly, despite the trace of sadness in her voice. For all I know, there's an entire story there. I'd ask, but that would be too inappropriate, even for friends. It's not my place to meddle, to begin with.
Or at least that's what they've been saying early on. My whole social circle would be saying it's a long time coming.
But the kid is something you want, right? Because if it ain't, then that's a whole other problem.
Of course. I wouldn't deny I've been hoping to have him or her for a long time now.
But does your husband
But
want
then,
it?
now that we're here, all of a sudden, there are a whole lot of other things to be worried about. Business, a new home, public image, my own husband, and I don't know. I didn't really have anyone for a role model. I practically grew up with nursemaids pampering me every step of the way. What if it happens to this baby as well? Oh, I can already see how this will end.
Huh. I guess it's not just my sister.
What?
You and my sister. I mean, you're both having jitters or something like that. That's what it's called, right? First baby jitters? Mind you, she was really convinced she'd do everything wrong then. He even called me in the middle of the night. Asked to switch places the day she found out she's carrying a new member of the family. Never mind how utterly impossible her request is.
I'm quite sure I haven't done anything of that sort yet.
Oh, you don't know that? My brother-in-law has been telling me things 5 weeks into my sister's pregnancy. Since she's one cranky pregnant lady. Man, good thing I found a place for myself years before that bundle of joy arrived, huh?
It can't be that awful.
Who knows? I think we'd better leave it for Mr. Right to decide, yeah?
Provided he comes around. He just sounds so repulsed every time the idea is brought up.
Then maybe you should say it to his face. No mincing of words or beating around the bushes.
And if he says no?
You haven't even told him yet. Besides, that's his kid. Don't people usually say fatherhood changes men?
Sometimes.
I wouldn't call myself a living testament, of course. But there ought to be something that will hit him in that idea alone.
Maybe.
A wrecking ball would be nice.
Laughter escapes me before I can stop it, and for a moment I thought I have done something wrong when she doesn't join in. He's still her husband, no matter what jest or complaint she hurls about him behind the media's eyes or the presence of people she trusts. But when she does, her chuckle, a small, hesitant sound at first, I find the rest of my unease slipping away.
Well, whatever it is, my point is, you've got no idea what will happen. In the same way, you don't know if you'll be a good mom. Trust me, my sister's been there. It's perfectly normal. If, my opinion matters, though.
A long second of indecision goes by. I can feel her eyes filled with nothing but curiosity boring into me while she waits for the rest. It's just a simple sentiment, but one thing I think she needs to hear all the doubt she unwittingly placed on herself. I'm just not sure if it should come from me. Ah, I'll be damned.
I think you'll be a great mother, Hana.
If she has an answer to that, I don't get to hear it, nor does she get to say it. God damn it. As soon as it's out of my mouth, the bell hanging over the antique store door chimes, and out comes Miss McCullough. For more than one reason, I have never been so relieved her talk got interrupted.
Everything's been taken care of for tomorrow, Mrs. Wright. You'll have everything you requested delivered early. I've left them instructions, but I may have to visit again right before your housewarming party to check for a few things. I hope that's acceptable to you?
More than Marianne. This is a little early to say, but you did marvelous work with the mansion. I can't wait to see all of it come together tomorrow.
I'm only doing my job, ma'am. Needless to say, it's always a pleasure to hear a client is satisfied with my work.
Nonsense! You have every reason to be proud. I know you've already established your name here, but I'll still make sure word gets out, of course. I think I've got a few friends who might be interested in decorating their homes. I'll see if I can introduce you to them tomorrow.
I really don't want to impose, Mrs. Wright. There's still a lot to be done, and I'd rather be keeping an eye on it myself.
You know well enough I'll still do it. You too, Monsieur le Photographe. You better be the one taking the pictures for the event tomorrow, or I'll be very upset.
I blink at her, confused. Last I checked, I have nothing scheduled on my plate tomorrow. A couple of fleeting thoughts did cross my mind, like working on personal projects. But with the expectant expression on Hannah's face alone, I've wondered before how they got Isabella to sell them the mansion with all the paperwork and the loops it has to go through. Well now, the how is already standing in front of me. It's one giant ball of persuasion in human form. If I have any doubts how she got around life, all of them have been dispelled right this instant. Hannah hasn't said anything, but I already know what my answer will be.
What event?
Our housewarming party, dearie. I've already sent invites through your publisher. They should have informed you of it by now.
I may have probably missed it. I haven't gotten the chance to check my mailbox yet. Deadlines, real-life happenings, you know, they can be pretty hectic. I'll try later, but they might have already assigned it to a different photographer if they haven't received my reply yet.
That's not a problem. Nothing a little call from me can't fix. I'll have them know I'm specifically requesting for your presence. It shouldn't be too hard. Just promise me you'll show up. I expect to see you both there. No excuses.
Good company, good music, good food. Of course I'll be there.
Lovely. I hope we have that settled then. I'd love to stay and chat, but unfortunately I have an appointment scheduled with the doctors after this. You two will have to excuse me.
Are you feeling fine, ma'am?
It's nothing big.
There is a short while in which her hand faintly touches her stomach when she says this. Her smile as she does so, a tender thing in itself. She might never let it cross her mind, but motherhood would suit her. The kid is already loved even more when he or she has yet to have a sense of the world. Candid moments like this, I wish I had brought a camera for.
Sorry we had to cut this short. I'd love to have lunch with you two, but, well, you two know how it goes.
It's quite fine, Mrs. Wright. I need to get going as well.
Is it somewhere far from here? I can have my driver drop you off on the way.
No, please. There's no need for that, Mrs. Wright. It's just within the city.
I see. What about you, Zach? We did leave your push bike at the mansion. Don't worry, I'll have someone bring it to your home later.
Nah, I live within the city too. A few blocks from here, in fact. I only visited earlier because
I never got around to it. The photos. Damn, I have completely forgotten about them. My hand grazes the side of my pocket where I've kept them since this morning. And sure enough, they're still there, waiting for the whole world to see them.
Because? Zach, sweetie, you're zoning out.
Miss Hannah, earlier, at the mansion.
Should I still show her the photos? Yeah. Dude, that was the whole point of this.
I think it would be better if you take a look at these yourself.
Seeing is believing, right? I reach in my pocket and pull out the photos, handing everything to her. Recognition flickers across her eyes when she reaches for them, and I have to stamp down the tiny twinge of regret in my stomach for having the gall to show it to her. Only it cuts deeper the instant both her and Miss McCullough expressions changes. And it's not a good look. To say she's repulsed would be a total understatement. All this time, Hannah had been nothing but her direct, saying what she feels, expressing what she wants. That's what I'm doing too, man. Away from the glamour and the camera lenses, she's a whole different person. But as she goes through each one of the pictures, I can't get an easy read on her.
Zach, dearie, what is this?
Your photos. The ones you requested copies of. I mean, they came out that way, and I thought you should know.
Oh, I get it. You know, I've heard before that artists can be a bit weird. Have you ever gotten that kind of comment, Marianne?
Not in my line of work, I'm afraid. Or ever, Mrs. Wright. I'd rather keep my personal hobbies away from my actual work. Less stress that way.
Oh, God.
Well, I suppose it just never crossed my mind that the saying applies to you as well, Zach.
Oh my God.
But talent's what's important, As long as you make good art, it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, that's... You see, when we had that photo shoot yesterday, there was something.
I wouldn't say I don't appreciate it. I did ask for copies, darling.
Oh my God.
But would it be possible for you to give me normal-looking ones? Preferably with my head intact. I admire the effort you took to edit this, though. It looks authentic. Frankly, if I show this to some other person, they'd probably believe those silly rumors about the mansion.
Oh my God.
Good publicity, but not the kind I'd want for my new home. So please.
She drops them back in my hands like the very surface burned hers.
If you could redo this, that would be wonderful. I'm positive you can do a better job than the one you just showed. Just try to keep the edits to a minimum,
Yeah.
Oh my
Okay,
God,
sure.
Zach, you asshole.
You can take your time, of
fucking
course.
piece of shit, Zach.
And speaking of time, I really must go.
She leaves without so much as a wave. I don't have to take a guess to know I've dismayed her and, in her own words, weirded her out. Besides me, Miss McCullough shakes her head. What are the odds I've also ruined my chances with the job she offered earlier? Very high, I'd say. It's a foolish idea in the first place. Miss McCullough departs shortly after Miss Wright has taken her leave, muttering something about getting a quick lunch before fetching Berthera from Chris. I don't know what or Beruthial is. It's more important for her to be kind of professional, and well, she doesn't seem too fond of small talk, something we can both agree on. Lunch sounds good, or a walk around the city maybe. But with the sun as high as it is now, nah. And after how things with Hannah went, I simply cannot muster the appetite for anything at the moment. So anyways, I'll stop right there for a second. God damn it, Zach. I'm trying to be forward, I'm trying to be direct, and all Zach does is just fucking stammer all over his fucking words. What's the point of me in showing any of this shit to anybody, because nobody ever fucking believes me in this game, and then at the end of it, everybody dies. Here, let's go through the list right now. Isabella is fine. Isabella's okay. Hannah, who gives a shit about Hannah? Nobody fucking cares. Zach is fine, and then I haven't even gotten to everybody else yet, but god damn, what the fuck, everybody. And Zach, stick up for yourself and fucking say it. No one believes me in this game. Nobody. If I don't do anything with it now, I have this impression it will rear its ugly head again. And by then, things might be too late to fix. And what other choice do I have? Ash, Rebecca, in all likelihood, all they've given me is a pat in the back and a Z-Man, go get some sleep, you're at it again, from Ash. I talked to Isabella, but I haven't seen her around since she showed up at my apartment 2 days ago. Weird. There is one person, though.
I should have thought of that first.
Oh, as it turns out, I do have another choice. I'm not a religious person. I won't identify myself as such. Or rather, I can't. Sure, my grandparents didn't have to force me to go weekly. I'd happily join them. In fact, most of my childhood Sundays have been spent attending service. It's simply that, as you get older, the more experiences you get forming your own beliefs on, things become easier, for the lack of a better word, and at one point it just stopped, that kind of thing. Nevertheless, I hold no disdain for it. Sometimes it does help, when things are really, really bad, when the dreams won't stay where they should be. Talking does, a bit. It's also a good thing Father Norman's, well, he's not completely the pious man you typically expect. My unlikely friendship only probably happened because he's the kind of guy who's cool with the young ones, as he so aptly puts. And he is surprisingly, it makes easy to approach. Maybe he has something to say about the photos as well. It won't hurt since I've already gone ahead and went to Anslem at daybreak on my bike. At the very least, I know I won't get shouted at by whoever answers the door.
Unless someone does that inside a church. I highly doubt it.
Despite its age, the Luxembourg church is a thing of wonders in itself, in which is highly vaulted ceilings and intricate stained glass windows, one of many gifts that Ermengarde family donated community in its early days. Or so I heard from Rebecca. She mentioned this once, although most of it flew over my head then. At this time of the day, the church is mostly empty, save for a few visitors and ushers shuffling about, some muttering their prayer under their breath. The scene of burning candles and incense permeate the air, giving the place a general feeling of reverence. Pretty welcoming, all in all. Even so, I keep the noise my treads make to a minimum. Disturbing the quiet feels like an omen. An usher points me to a pew in front of the altar when asked where Father Norman prays. He mentioned something about the good priest not being in good health. Ever since he was asked by a couple to bless their new home before moving in. This is the first time in days he's left his room. No surprise there. With the weird heat lately, even Rebecca caught something. Nervous little chap, the kid. Nevertheless, he leads me close to the foot of the with a reminder not to say, oh. Seconds later, Father shifts and stands. He doesn't seem to have noticed me, and I have to give him a little tap on the shoulder. When he looks, though, to say he's surprised is an understatement.
Stay away.
Oh shit. His voice comes out a whisper, almost inaudible in the hush, a quiet restraint and deference to where we are both standing, but the tremor is there. He focuses on me with wide, bulging eyes, copious amount of sweating appearing on his forehead, despite the relative
Father
coolness in his voice.
Keep your distance.
Hey, it's me, Zach, remember?
Stay away. Don't come near me.
Must be the fever talking, or whatever he caught. It has to be. I don't recall ever doing anything to him to drive me away like this. In all the years I've known him, he's been nothing but polite, nothing but accepting of people regardless of beliefs or status in life. For words akin to a threat to come out of him is simply beyond unimaginable.
Go back to where you came from. Leave.
Father, what did I do?
Leave now.
I extend a hand to his shoulder, meant to be reassuring. But he recoils, his ankle catching on the edge of the die as he backs away. His shout when I attempt to reach out again echoes through the entire hall, catching the attention of the few people inside. I try to keep a level tone, but with these strangers' eyes trained on us, panic starts to weave its way into me.
Stay away, demon. Go back to the hell you came from.
Father, it's okay. I only came here for some pictures I thought looked odd. I figured you might know something.
From my pocket, I fish out the photos and try to hand it to him. Instead, he strikes my wrist away, almost like an accusation, and sends the photographs fluttering uselessly to the floor. Helpless, I can only watch as he curls into himself on the ground, a sad, blubbering mess whimpering to himself. He tips his head forward and begins rocking, his hands clapped over his ears.
That accursed spirit, so full of anger and pain. All those horrible things I've seen. I can't sleep. I can't eat everywhere I look. Go away. Go away. You're not supposed to be here. This is a house of God. Be gone, demon. Lord have mercy, God our Lord, King of ages, all-powerful and almighty, you who made everything and transform everything simply by your will.
A number of people have moved closer, mostly just to gawk. Thankfully, as if to save him from being an utter spectacle, two ushers come out, taking him away. One of them, the kid from earlier, shoots me an apologetic look. I can't even return it to him. Anxiety is a powerful thing, a firm little notion that clings, eats, and consumes you. I could still hear his prayers even as they drag him away.
May he keep at bay and vanquish every evil power, every poison or malice invoked against us by corrupt and envious people. Then under the protection of your authority may we sing in gratitude.
It rings, hums in me as if I've left to pick up the pieces of this chaos. Back to square one we go. If there is salvation in this, I hope we find it soon. The moon is well into the night sky, my heavy treads and sound of traffic outside echoing in my ears. Nana would scold me if she ever hears me walk like that, but after today I really can't give a damn about everything. The mattress creaks under my weight as I unceremoniously flop down on it. I find myself looking at the paper under my grip. As promised, Mrs. Wright had my bike delivered back to my apartment. Found it parked in the rack downstairs with an invitation and a note tacked to it, in fact. Be there, it said. If only it were that easy, but I'll give a chance to talk to her. About that thing in their house. Oh, that's right. That's right, I showed him the pictures with a sigh. I let my hands fall to the side of the bed along with the invitation. I'll think about it tomorrow when my head ain't muddled with thoughts of headless woman and haunting smiles of a ghost. Belatedly, it occurs to me I haven't eaten anything since I left this morning. And an empty, gnawing ache makes itself known, but I can't bring myself to stand up. Today was a complete waste of time and frankly a disappointment. I don't like this. The lack of certainty, the disquiet, the lack of stable ground to stand on, the part where I don't know what will come tomorrow. Ever since that damn letter, everything has been thrown out of the loop. I wish everything stayed the same. Routine would have been easier to make sense of than this. Closing my eyes, I let the noise from the streets below lull me to sleep. At the very least, that's the one thing that hasn't changed. October 29th, Saturday. The melody carries in the hall long before I cross the threshold. Solemn but gentle and soothing, a reminder of what home is. Pa's firm but meaningful gaze, Ma's wistful smiles, the warm rays filtering through the eaves at sunset, the distinct smell of wet earth. The room, Ma and Pa's pride and joy, place where we were once promised several springs, yet it won't stop.
No, wait! Come back! I'll be good this time! Please don't leave! Please stay!
The floorboards are cold underneath my feet more than it usually is, the walls more forbidding than what I'm used to. Farther and farther the room goes. Ma's singing ceases, and Pa, I can't hear Pa. Not about the raucous clanging and the deafening roar of gunshots, nor the screams replacing the comforting soft melodies. There is only the blinding fear. But when the light breaks, her skin has already taken a sickly pale color, rotten in most parts, blood dripping from every open gash. Bony hands grip Hannah's neck like a noose, staining the skin underneath with a vibrant shade of scarlet. Nothing but malice fills the gleam in her eyes. A scream ripples through the air. My whole body feels distant. Every limb heavy with lead, all unable to move at will. Not even so I can wipe the beads of sweat forming at my temple. The rasping of my breath easily fills the room in the wee hours while I force it back into a steady rhythm. There is tightness in my chest. I can't shake it off, my heart pounding against it as if it's about to burst out. Something cold has settled in my legs. Not the usual chill that comes and goes with the passing breeze from the window, but one strong enough to sting, shackle, leave a fridge sensation creeping up my skin. With every struggle I make, the pressure winds firmly around my leg. Tighter, and tighter, and tighter. All until it becomes too much. My heart stops. Another draft sweeps into the room and brings with the iron tang of blood. Thick, suffocating, filling my nose with a foul, sickening smell as I shift my gaze downwards and it slowly comes into view. Mouth stretched in a hideous smile. Get away from my crotch, lady. In a hideous smile, eyes brimming with nothing but death. The stench of gore taints the air around me, and I can't look away from it, from the terror and death that her uncanny, twisted features alone scream. I try to open my mouth, to shout, to ask for any help, but my voice has left my body altogether. All I have is this painful realization that no kind of plea will ever save me from her. Then suddenly, the bed dips. Can you get away from me? The brutal plunge back into myself jerks. There's no ear-splitting scream, no wild thrashing of limbs. Just a painful, constricting awareness that something had wound itself tightly around my legs. I waste no second pulling a blanket away, but allowing myself a few minutes to steady my breathing before getting out of bed. Inhale, hold, exhale. 1 step, 2 step, 3. But the dreams have gotten worse. Ever since 2 days ago, no longer are the small, cursory flashes that I'm used to, but vivid ones that linger. I can still feel the blood in my eyes, the putrid smell of rotting flesh, the sickening crunch of bones, breaking with every movement, and her cold, chilling eyes. I draw on one leg, ragged breath, and before I know it, I'm walking out the door. Even if the waking world, it reeks. The bench on the park is far from the most vibrant place for thoughts in Luxembourg, considering its location at the heart of the bustling city. But in the early hours of the morning, it provides enough peace and quiet for any poor, problematic soul who happens to wander here. The city is just waking up and a little later than usual, but knowing what day it is, one can't fault it for being a tad tardy just this once. Yet neither the pleasant morning chill nor the soft twittering of birds does anything to banish them images. Every single one has rooted inside of my head, its claws digging deeper into which no longer a safe place can hide in. It used to be easy, finding some pretense of peace under the guise of sheer optimism, following regular routine. Now I don't know what to make of it. Sometimes it's easier to run, easier to hide when everything's falling apart. That way you don't have to be the first to witness it when it does. It worked when things went bad with the movie, after all. It also worked when Ma and Pa were taken from us, though the sentiment's a little hypocritical when you think about my little talk with Mrs. Wright the other day. But that's just how it is. Maybe it really is better if I just...
Hey, mister!
Fuck off, kid. The tiny voice gives me a pause. Are you a demon spawn? When I look up, a little girl, maybe about 6 or 7, is peering at me. 2 wide eyes, overflowing with what can only be natural curiosity one typically sees in children. I vaguely note that's Saint Goretti uniform she's wearing before returning her greeting.
Hey, kid.
Kylie.
Kylie?
That's my name. Mama said it's rude not to call people by their names.
She then flops down on an empty space beside us. Alright, well, I'm going to end the episode right there. Fantastic episode. Nobody believes us about anything. We almost had a demon blowjob, and some girls talking to us in the park. Hope you all enjoyed episode 10. See you back again next time.